Hi, this is Jerome Cabanatan, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. It's November 13th, 2020. I'm John Swinimer. If you have a comment, criticism, or question, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Jerome Cabanatan about WhitCAF 2020. The podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. And don't forget to check out the new YouTube channel. Hosted by the Whitby Library in Whitby, Ontario, the annual Comic Arts Festival celebrates comic book creators and makers in a variety of fun and entertaining activities, including exhibits, panels, readings, artist alley, contests, and more. Jerome is a full-time Taekwondo coach and instructor, a make-the-time cartoonist, and most importantly, an all-the-time husband and daddy. He started making comics to help instruct his after-school program at Toronto's Young Chung Taekwondo Academy to ignite the learning addiction in his students, the same way comics and cartoons drove him towards martial arts and its myriad of life lessons. He has currently written, drawn, and self-published 2 graphic novels and a rhyming Dr. Seuss-style ABC book under the Tree Kids of Troop 44 title, and is in the process of happily making more. He also creates mashup art and is looking forward to meeting more people with weird ideas. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Jerome Cabanatan about WhitCAF 2020. Jerome Cabanatan, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
No problem. Thanks, John. Hey, thanks for having me.
I appreciate your time. What I normally do to start off the interview and just to catch you off guard is to see if you remember what was the first comic book that you remember reading.
Oh, the first comic that I remember reading, it was a Claremont Byrne X-Men. I can't remember exactly what issue it was, but it was like a bootleg version from the Philippines that my grandfather brought over in a suitcase, and like with just a bunch of old like 70s 80s Marvel comics, but they were all like bootleg Filipino ads and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the color was probably a little bit messed up, but yeah, you fall in love with the character designs, and I didn't really realize, I didn't really put it together that it was made by people, that there were creators and authors and illustrators behind it, and I just took the superhero as the thing, and it's only really been past couple of years that it really has kicked into my head. It was like, oh no, these were made by creative people, and that's why I like certain runs and I don't like certain runs.
Right. Sure. Good stuff. Well, I'm talking to you and others about WhitCAF, which has gone virtual this year. So I'm wondering if you could talk about your latest project that you're promoting these days.
My latest project that I'm promoting right now, that's done and is available for sale, is it's actually a children's book. It's called the ABCs of Haya. It's my riff on a Dr. Seuss book, but alphabetic, and just has some lessons that I would teach, because I'm actually a Taekwondo instructor, national team coach. I've ran after school programs. That's actually why I started to make comics, was to reinforce any lessons that I would do on a daily basis, and just kind of played it off from there. So the ABCs of Haya, that's it's kind of like a companion children's book to my first graphic novel that they're both on Amazon. It's called The Tree Kids of Troop 44, and once again, it's very martial arts centric. So it's 248 pages of Haya. I do mostly all ages comics, so anyone that is like a Captain Underpants reader, or a Dr. Seuss, or a Dr. Seuss reader for that matter, that's kind of where I'm starting out. I would like to branch out and do more things, because I do have a lot of ideas and I'd like to get them out. I don't want to put myself in a box, but that's where I'm at right now. So that children's book. So both are still available on Amazon, all regions. So the .cas get the .cas, and .coms get the .coms. So yeah, so that's currently what I'm trying to push. That's finished. I'm working on a couple projects right now as well.
So I'm wondering if you have any advice for newcomers who want to make comic books. What advice would you give to them?
Well, the advice just a new creator is to create and not care so much about the result or the quality, because not to say that to just do it lazily, but I find with a lot of creators, and this happened a lot when I was working with kids and adults for that matter, for Taekwondo. Right, you're scared to make that mistake. You're scared to make that mark. You're scared to do that move wrong. You just won't do the repetitions, and you won't learn it. So it's a matter of just go out and get it done and learn along the way. If you make a mistake, make it better in the next one. Any of these professionals, if we want to take Jack Kirby for example, I don't think he toiled and tussled over some of the panels. He drew what he drew and he went to the next page. I think that's where I started to find a lot of progress, even from my first book to the stuff that I'm working on now. I see a lot of jumps in my skill level just because I kind of set it into my head that, I'm pretty new at this. And so I can't make a judgment about myself, about my ability to do this until I've done like 1,000 pages.
Right.
And I left that 1,000 pages kind of broad. Like I will celebrate 1,000 pages in my sketchbook. I will celebrate 1,000 published pages. I will celebrate 1,000 pages of one particular series. Right. But that's kind of been where I'm at, and that's how I've taught Taekwondo. If you haven't noticed, that's a large part of who I am.
Right. Sure.
So,
that's cool.
When it in matters of martial arts, it's a matter of repeating, right? It's a matter of repeating and of anything, right? I know how to I'm pretty good at using a spoon, and I can use the toilet really well. But when I first, as a parent, when I was trying to get my kids to do it,
Oh yeah, that's true.
A spoonful of baby food that's dangerous stuff. That goes everywhere, right?
That's true.
But they know how to do it now, right?
Exactly.
My kids can use the toilet now. I can use the toilet now, but I didn't always. So I kind of come into anything new that I'm doing. I kind of I know I have to make a mess first. I have to make a mess first before I get it done. And there's been times I look back on some of the old stuff, and I was like, oh, maybe I should retouch it, maybe. And no, I always have to pull myself back and know that seeing the growth throughout my work, I don't want to hide that from myself. I don't want to hide that from people that want to follow my stuff. So when it comes to sales on a first book, I don't think it'll actually start picking up until my fifth book anyway. So I just want to get to that 1,000 pages.
Right. Well, that's good advice. Absolutely. Cool. I want to step back a bit and ask you about your opinion about the roles that libraries and library events like WhitCAF play in fostering comic books and their creation.
Maybe I've been living under a rock, but I just, the first event that I went to at a library was WhitCAF. And I know TCAF did it. I know, I think Dartmouth has one too. But like things like a comic arts festival, it's speaking from my experience at WhitCAF, it was way better than any con, like any other con that I would go to, just because the nature of the library is about reading it, right? Rather than what MCU movie is out or like any of that stuff. When it comes to pushing reading, not in any bad way, but like when it gets to by promoting reading and art and writing and creating, I think a library is just at its core. It's a vital part of the community that I don't think people appreciate as much, just because there's other ways to get information now. Having an event in a library environment, or having the library, when I started seeing libraries hold graphic novels, right? Hold graphic novels and trade paperbacks, like that was heaven. Like I would have wished to have that, as
exactly.
A kid.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how many times I've took out like the single Tintin, or like just because I couldn't find anything cool enough, I grabbed like those eyewitness books of like the weapons, and I would just go into that. Had I had like an all ages Spider-Man, or like even like a Calvin and Hobbes collection.
Right. Yeah.
Like Bill Watterson, I really always liked it growing up, but it went over my head. And only as really an adult did I appreciate the amount of craft that was involved in what he did. Because I didn't notice it, it just flew through my head. But sorry, I flew off on a tangent. But yeah, librarians.
No, that's great
So,
though. That's good. Do you have any favorite memories from past library events that you like to share?
library events. I've been to one, and that was WhitCAF, and that was my favorite event that I've actually ever been to. And to be honest, I've only gone to, I can count them on both hands. But being at WhitCAF, I met a couple of creators that I linked up with again over COVID, and we're working on projects together.
Oh, that's great.
We became really good friends, and I think they'll both be so. Like Jason Lapidus, the artist from Group of Seven. I know you've interviewed him a couple of times. Him and Chris
Cool
Sandy.
guys. Absolutely.
They're awesome guys, right? They're awesome guys. That's why I keep them around. I wonder why they keep me around. But there's Craig Kim. He was actually a tattoo artist that was just a comic fan, and I met him just because we were wearing the same shirt from the. We're wearing the same shirt, and we kind of recognized it. It was like, oh, you listen to that show too? Yeah. So
cool.
So we got together that way. So that was really cool. And last year I got to make a lot of noise in a library, which I never really have. And I got to get everybody to just say to tell everybody to read more comics in unison and make noise in a library. And being able to do all that, and even the setup of WhitCAF, rather than it being booths that are around and people are walking in through aisles, had the creators kind of like surrounded by the desks, so we were kind of in a hub together. So we had really no choice but to bounce back energy and work, and being more of a community to promote comics and art and literature, rather than competing for whose lineup is the biggest.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because which is completely opposite of my very, very first con, which I had. It was a small con, but Dale Keown was there, and I was 5 tables down from him, and he had a lineup like basically running through the whole gym, and I had like my cousin and my buddy show up with a coffee. But I had a blast because I was being able to do something that I never really thought that I could.
Sure, absolutely.
But we're working with a couple of other people. Another person that I met over at the last WhitCAF was Spencer Afonso. Villains Like Us. He's done like the Brock Street Brewery cans, which are really cool. Like I think I've bought a couple beers just because of his can. But yeah, so we worked on something over COVID, just through correspondence. So, but that kind of stuff is fun. Being able to meet other people that not just read the superhero stuff, because the superhero stuff is great, but the guys that read it and read the other stuff, make the other stuff, and doesn't necessarily look like anything else, and it's really just for themselves. And I think when people do art for art's sake, it really does. It bleeds into the work, and you can feel it, and that's really what I enjoy about these kinds of events. It's meeting the creators. I found that it was different from someone that was trying to make, like, I'm going to make another Spider-Man or a bad guy Superman, or
right.
It's right. People talking, right? People making comics are just about just weirdness that goes on through their head and would not ever pass any kind of board, right? Not to say that it's raunchy or anything, but people would be like, nobody will understand that. But I've always found that kind of stuff is the best stuff, and the stuff that sticks into my head.
So I'm wondering where you recommend people go online to buy your comic books and find out more about you.
Well, to find out more about me, it's you can go and find me on Instagram. It's probably the best place. You'll get everything from Taekwondo stuff to my kids doing crazy stuff to me doing art stuff to me promoting my comic or making comics, or just generally what's there. That's kind of the central hub for any of the stuff that I have. So it's at Jerome Cab, so JROAMCAB. So that's Instagram, which is the same as my Twitter. It's all connected. It's there. Or you can find me on Facebook at it's Jerome Cabanatan. And if you would like to take a look at my book and my series, The Tree Kids of Troop 44, has own Facebook page. You can look at Tree Kids of Troop 44, or it's at TKO Troop 44, like the numbers. So at TKO Troop 44, and that's the page for that. I guess we could call it an IP, right? Because it's that world, it's that universe. It's based on the lessons that I would teach in class. So like as much as cartoony as the art is, the explanations of the techniques that are in there, they're how I would teach it in a class. Any of the moral lessons or the things that I talk about at the end of classes. It was just I used the book as a medium to, hopefully people will read any of the books or any of the works that I do and kind of inspire them to start or return it to a martial art or a sport or some kind of passion. I just think that martial arts kind of, it's like Frank's Red Hot. Like you can put it on anything and then it'll make it better. That's where I like my books to go. I like people reading them and they want to look up the local karate school or taekwondo school, or they want to take up jiu-jitsu because they saw it. Facebook, Instagram. I'm active on a couple of groups on Facebook as well. There's a Cartoonist Kayfabe Ringside Seats. I'm pretty active there and in that community, and that's kind of where I met a lot of these other creators. So it wasn't just like Jason and Craig over COVID. There's guys from like Australia and California, and I don't know if you got to interview Craig. He'll be repping Cosmic Lion Productions. They did an homage to the Wizard magazines, Wizard with a backwards E. So
Good.
yeah, I have a spread in there too. It's an Etch a Sketch comic. So yeah, that's another thing. I didn't say that before, but like I'll pat myself on the back and say that I'm an Etch a Sketch whiz. So.
Well, Jerome, those are all the questions I have, but I'm wondering if there's something I didn't ask you that you'd like to get across in this interview.
Well, if there's something that I'd like to get across is you guys can, like all of you, I implore you, you can buy like 12 copies of each of my book and send it to all of your friends and tell them to get all of those too. But seriously, just when it comes with all of this COVID stuff that has happened, people have been putting themselves in a hole, whether it's physically, mentally, or by choice, or it's been put upon them. I really would suggest that if you do find yourself stuck, it's like some people will binge like Netflix shows and entertainment and all that stuff, and that's fine. But I want people to know that they have that there's power in art and can get you out of some spots in your head, right? If you don't know what to do, let's say you're not very active, even though I think people should be active and social, but if you can't do those things, then art can save you. And when COVID hit, I actually went to one of these groups and just kind of joking around, I made a fan fiction image page, right? And it was like had like Savage Dragon and I asked, I just asked around and like, hey, you guys want to riff on this and just kind of play around with the same feeling as that Wizard thing that they did. So I just did it with Image. I just did it with like some Image books because I never really read Image books, to be completely honest with you. But the pictures were cool, so I drew it, and another Canadian guy, this guy David Browers, he basically made a faux cover. The level of his art is bonkers. If you ever want to look the guy up, I think not just because he's my friend now, but if he was to go back into the 90s, I think he could have been the Image guy. Because of that, it snowballed, and that's how I actually hooked back up with Jason, how I hooked back up with Craig. Then I met a couple other guys. All of these guys, yeah, we're making something really, really good out of a really crappy situation that the whole world's in. Hopefully people will be able to read it and just know that you can make good stuff out of a crap situation, and that's how art can save. And I just want to let everybody know that whatever it is that's your project, because I actually had a lot of people that were in this project are now creating their own other projects, right? And they're trying to get other people on board. So it seemed to, in my small circle, in my small world, it seemed to have, it's kind of sparked a little bit of a creator boom where people just want to get stuff out there because they saw somebody else put stuff out there. There's so much more skilled and talented writers and artists that are on this project. I don't think it would have happened if I didn't just right, just for fun. Let me go put that out there, and I put it out there, and I've gotten better at the craft. I've met some great artists. I've made really good friends, and in a time where we couldn't go outside, we couldn't shake hands with somebody. We got to do all these things because someone decided to make a comic and wanted to do it with a bunch of people. It's been one of my whims that I've never regretted.
Thanks to Jerome for the chat. You can discover more about Jerome on Twitter and Instagram at JROAMCAB. You can discover more about Tree Kids of Troop 44 at treekidsoftroop44.wordpress.com. And you can discover more about WhitCAF 2020 at whitbylibrary.ca/WhitCAF. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube, so please like and subscribe to that video channel. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2020.